This is an Eye on Annapolis bonus podcast.
Ramshead is known for music and comedy, but they have one of the most out-of-the-box shows coming up at Maryland Hall on April 2nd. And if I'm being honest, when I heard about it, I snatched 4 tickets right away. So I'm thrilled to be speaking with Dr. Rachel Toles about, believe this or not, the psychology of serial killers and why they captivate us. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's so great to be here.
First things first, tickets are going fast. They are still available. You can get them at ramsheadonstage.com or marylandhall.org. And the show is at 7:30 p.m. on April 2nd. But, you know, Dr. Toles, I'm not sure where to start. I mean, you are a licensed clinical psychologist working extensively, but not exclusively, in the sort of law enforcement incarceration sort of world, trying to understand the motivations of serial offenders. Does that sort of nail it down?
That's correct. Yes, that's exactly right.
Of all of the different aspects of psychology, how did you end up here?
You know, it's all about following your heart and following your, what you're passionate about. And when I was 5 years old, I witnessed a young girl getting hit and killed by a car, and it happened right in front of me, like eye shot. And after this, I became utterly fascinated by death and anything in the world that might cause death. And so when I would watch movies and things, there were, I'd see boogeymen and various dangerous monsters, and I would be very, very, very fixated on these people. And then as I got older, it just began to morph into the why. Like, okay, how did these people become like this? And then when I was 14, I learned about Jeffrey Dahmer, and my life changed.
Well, yeah, that would do it.
Yes, that would.
I'll tell you, I've got a confession, though, because like right after I grabbed the tickets, I called my girlfriend up at work and told her, I said, hey, put this date on your calendar. We're going to go see this show called Psychology of Serial Killers and Why They Captivate Us. And she says to me with, I'm assuming, a raised eyebrow because we were on the phone, she says, is there something I need to know? As with,
oh my gosh.
But as with you, it is fascinating to me, and I'm sure it is very fascinating to many. And what are we going to expect when you come to Annapolis on April 2nd?
Okay, well, you're going to expect to see you're going to have your whole concept of these people flipped on the head, because forever, people in my field and the rest of the world has dismissed serial killers as bad seeds, born that way, born psychopathic, because they've looked at brain scans well after these people have murdered, and they just concluded, well, these areas of the brain are just different when they're probably born this way. And it's like, no, now we know that that's just not the case, that severe trauma in their childhoods. And so I go through 9 factors that make a serial killer. It's my own formula that I've come up with after doing extensive research into the lives of these people and realizing, okay, that happened in that person's life and that happened in that person's life, and realizing that this is the same formula I'm finding in all of their lives, and what happens to a brain when it's exposed, especially early on and consistently, to certain levels of trauma in the childhood home.
Wow. Okay. So it's not what we've read about, what we think about, what we've listened.
That's right. This is a whole new take. It's a take that I've personally never heard before.
Really? This is fascinating. How long is the program?
So it's going to be, the first half is about 45 minutes where I will be lecturing, kind of showing you the serial killer formula, and then applying it to several prominent serial killers that people know. And then the second half is a live Q&A where people get to ask any questions that they have about these people.
I mean, okay, so I'm even more excited as we talk about this. Okay, so we read statistics every single day, and you hear there's 1 out of 10 people are going to get in an accident in their car 5 miles from home and all that kind of stuff. Is there some sort of statistic out there floating around in your world that says, X out of X people has the potential to become a serial or be a serial killer?
I think 100 out of 100 people have the potential to be a serial killer. That's my whole argument, is that, like, we all, if circumstances were a bit different or a lot different in our lives, have the potential, believe it or not, to be like these people. And that is, I think, underneath it all, what both captivates us and terrifies us. But that's why we keep coming back for more.
100 out of 100 has the potential. That's a terrifying statistic.
Yes.
There. Okay, I'm going to try to get rid of that out of my mind.
Well, because otherwise, we can look at them like, okay, they're all albino squirrels. They're all just so rare, and they are. And the ones actually have all these things happen to them, it is rare. It's very rare to have the type of genetics that you need and all these different factors that are going on. In the show, I talk about how, Malcolm Gladwell wrote an article about, plane crashes. He points out that 7 unrelated events have to happen in order for a plane to crash. It's very rare for a plane to crash because it's very rare for all 7 things to go wrong. But once in a while, you get that unfortunate combination, and it does. And the same goes for serial killers. But all of us humans, I mean, we're 99.9% alike. We all share the same DNA. So just because, their circumstances are different than ours doesn't mean that we couldn't be one. It's just that we won the lottery when it came to circumstances.
I see that. It's funny though that you can't turn on a smartphone, or I can't anyhow, without stumbling across some new true crime podcast. I guess in some sense we're all kind of voyeurs at heart, and we just want to sort of peek into that, and you can take that for whichever way you want to look at it. But, do you find that these true crime podcasts, are they helpful? Are they harmful? Are they just pure entertainment? Or
I think it's all of the. I don't think they're harmful. I mean, of course, if it's a real true addiction, any kind of true addiction, if you can't do anything, you can't leave the house because you're so addicted to watching true crime, that might be harmful. But otherwise, I think if you're curious about things, that's a great thing. And I think, again, at the end of the day, I think it's a secret desire to understand the self better. It's not like, ooh, who are those people? I need to separate myself from those people. There's an unconscious thing going on inside of people who are drawn to this because they know deep down that there's something in them that could have behaved that way. I mean, we were all kids, and at some point we've all had a psychopathic time in our lives before we developed a conscience and realized, oh yeah, life forms, those are precious things. But like, kids go through these phases. We don't forget, whether, maybe we don't consciously remember, but it's in there. We've all gone through it. And, children have sadistic tendencies, but then, there's a moment where you realize, oh, this hurts me more than it hurts even the thing that I'm maybe going to hurt. And so then we shift gears, but some people are just stuck in that place. And it's a matter of, okay, what is it in us now that just is making the decisions not to kill?
Interesting. Well, as you've studied all of these serial killers and, sort of gotten into, the ones that you could have their brains, who's the most, to you, a trained psychologist, who's the most fascinating one for you?
Has always been Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer has always. That's why actually this has all happened, because I've been talking about Jeffrey Dahmer for over 20 years with people. And most of the time, my lovely family and friends, they've just, even my colleagues who I went to grad school with, they were all like, yeah, I don't want to hear about Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't want to talk about him. I mean, I know you like talking, but they'd listen, but then all of a sudden, of course, the Netflix series dropped. And now I had a whole group of people that were excited to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Netflix series got a lot of things wrong. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make these videos and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to tell them everything that I know about Jeffrey Dahmer. And then boom, it just changed everything, because now I've gone down the rabbit hole of spreading the word. But yes, I find him the most fascinating because he's, unlike most serial killers, he did not like to kill.
Really?
Yeah, he saw it as a waste. The only motive that he ever had was to completely control a person and to keep them with him as long as possible, even if that just meant keeping a part of them. Hence, he tried to turn them into human zombie dolls by drilling holes into their heads and then pouring in hydrochloric acid, because he was trying to keep them alive so he didn't have to kill anymore. That didn't work. And then he, of course, ate a lot of them because that would kind of keep them a part of him, and it's just the type of psychology. I mean, just his brain went down that very dark rabbit hole.
You have to be either really, really fascinating or really, really terrifying at cocktail parties.
Oh, that's so funny. I think that's a joke that my moderator, Carrie Epima, makes. Like, yeah, so she points that out. But yeah, I mean, I think probably both. But I think that's why they come back for more, because they're like, well, what just happened? But I also need to keep coming back for more. That's what I find people have when it comes to these conversations.
Sure. Well, we've heard of the notorious ones. Okay. You've talked about Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, we've got Ted Bundy, go way back. We looked at Jack the Ripper in London, John Wayne Gacy. I imagine there's so many more that are out there that are less notorious, that didn't get the 6 o'clock news or the Netflix series put on them or everything like that. Or
yes. I
mean, are there any that are here local to Maryland, or dare I say it, like Annapolis, that you know of? Or is that putting you on the spot?
No. I usually like to talk about every serial killer in the local area. I kind of save it for the show. There is one. He killed, if people know, if they really know the serial killers, if they're in Maryland, they know this one. He killed in the 1950s. I don't want to give his name away because I want them to come to a show. So if you want to hear about him, please come to a show. And he fits the formula that I talk about in the show. And he killed women. I think his victim count was around 10. And but yeah, he killed in the 50s, and yeah. So yeah, every place has usually someone that they are either proud of or they're not proud of. It's interesting how it can go either way.
You know, as I rattled off that list, I happened to notice that there weren't any women on it.
Oh, but yeah, I do talk about female serial killers. I'll tell you. Yes,
I've gotten into arguments with friends where they say, "Oh my gosh, there's all the mass shootings that we're seeing and everything else says, oh, it's always men, always, you know, the white men." I'm like,
yes.
Well, there was Sylvia Segrist outside of Philadelphia in the mall because I live near that area, and I was like, I remember her. So, you know, but are there women serial killers out there, or
there are? So 8% of serial killers in the United States are female.
The men do have a lock on it then.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Men are way more likely. But interestingly enough, prior to the 1900s, it was 50-50 male, female serial killers.
Are male serial killers any more violent or?
Oh, yes. Well, because I mean, if you think about it, men are just physically stronger. Their bodies are just stronger than our bodies for the most part. And so you've got that aspect. And women kill primarily for monetary gain. You don't see a lot of sexual sadists when it comes to female serial killers, whereas there's plenty of them when it comes to men. So the drives are different.
All right. So because I'm kind of poor, so I'm pretty safe.
Well, yes, from a female serial killer, but you know, you may not be safe from a Jeffrey Dahmer. I'll tell you that. You know. Well,
practical advice. I mean, it's kind of terrifying that you said 100% of or 100 out of 100. Is there any practical advice or any kind of red flags that scream like, hey, you know, let's just keep this person at arm's distance?
You know, this is what I always say to people. The best way, because you know, talking gets in the way of a lot of things. I really mean that. Animals are good at protecting themselves because they don't talk, and they listen to nonverbal communications, which I think it's more sophisticated versus less than just talking. And so when we drop into our bodies and we get a sense of what our bodies are saying when we're in the presence of the potential killers, that's going to be our best bet at identifying how we feel in our bodies. You hear people say like, oh yeah, the hair on my arms or back of my neck standing up because I'm in the presence of this person. I can't explain why. Your body's not going to lie to you. And if your body senses it, that's the best way to find out if you're in the presence of someone that just makes you feel a little uneasy. And so I always say, get quiet, get still. If you want to know if you can trust people, get quiet and get still in their presence, and you will know pretty quickly.
It's funny that you talked about the hair standing up on the back of your neck and everything else. A long time ago,
yes.
my kids were little. We had just moved down into the area, and my ex-wife and I took the kids out. We were supposed to do something in D.C. and sort of see what D.C. was all about, but we ended up screwing up the hotels and everything else. So we ended up staying in this not so great part of town. We got real frustrated with dinner. We ended up at McDonald's, and we got up in there, and I'm like, okay, guys, eat up. Let's go. And they're like, we just got here. I'm like, I don't care. Eat up. Let's go. Let's go. And I said, I don't know what it is. I said, I didn't eat my meal. I was like, okay, get up, get in the car. We're out. And
wow.
Subsequently, a year later, a good friend of mine was actually the fire marshal for DC. And he said, that's very weird because that DC, obviously it's a statistic, but said is the one McDonald's in the world that has more murders in it than any other one in the world. I mean,
wow.
I don't know how many murders happen in McDonald's, but
wow.
But I was like, okay,
but that tells me, because that explains why. Because I'm thinking it's interesting that a man would go ahead and buy 4 tickets, and you know, because it just tells me that you're just really in touch with that kind of stuff, and that's a great thing. But that's why you like true crime. I think it's people that are very in tune with this kind of stuff that would be into true crime. And that's why a lot of women are. You just sound like you're a very intuitive person. You have a good spidey sense going.
I guess. Well, I guess the moral of this story is just trust your gut. I mean, if it's there,
yes,
and worst case, it doesn't work out and you're fine and you look like an idiot. And, you know.
That's right. But always trust your gut.
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Toles, as we begin to wrap it up a little bit, what's something that surprised you as you've gone down your journey of getting into the minds of serial killers that, like when you first heard about Jeffrey Dahmer, I mean, you're like, okay, so now you're X years beyond that to be able to say, wow, I never saw this coming.
You know what it is that, I feel like throughout my life, I've been pretty introspective, and I'm really grateful for that, because I don't know if it came from just my genes or just because I don't think a ton of people in my family were, I have introspective family members, but it's just, I've always looked inside. And so I've always concluded things by first looking inside and then looking outside. And the thing that always surprised me as I would move along down this path of learning about each of these people, they were all just like, even Jeffrey Dahmer, they all just wanted to know why. They get caught and, the authorities would be like, why did you do this? Why did you kill these people? And the response is, well, I was hoping you'd tell me that, because they don't know. Because there's a level of just automatic pilot. I've just got to kill. I'm hungry for the kill. I'm hungry for the whatever it is that drives them to do these things. And so it's just that, wow, they are really in the dark. They've got this primitive brain that's just telling them they've got to do this thing. And for a moment, they feel a high. And so then just breaking down, okay, where does that high come from? And where did it come from before? And why don't they have? And so that's a big part of what led me, because I felt like, okay, you know what? I want to be able to give this to some of the people like Jeffrey Dahmer, and to the victims, people that don't know why, because he was murdered in prison, and he was murdered not knowing why he did what he did, and it's something he always wanted to know. And so the fact that I feel like I'm at least scratching a big part of the surface as to why is something I'm happy about.
There's the why. The whys in our lives are really difficult. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? And we do often move on from traumatic instances in our life, hopefully not as traumatic as what Jeffrey Dahmer had gone through, but with that unresolved, which is, it's a regret that I always have. I'll tell you, we are in for a fascinating night on April 2nd at Maryland Hall when Dr. Toles comes in. The Psychology of Serial Killers and Why They Captivate Us. Tickets are available, again, either at marylandhall.org or ramsheadonstage.com. Actually, I was talking to Ramshead earlier this morning, and I have a pair of tickets to give away to the first person that can get in touch with me, and everybody knows how to do that because we've got it in the show notes, and tell me the town where Ted Bundy was finally arrested. And hush, you hush up because you probably know the answer.
Hush up. Yep. Yeah, I want to scream it out, but I won't.
The hint, it's not Annapolis, so that's a good thing to know.
Yes.
And I do suggest everybody check out Dr. Toles' site. It's Dr. Rachel Toles, and that's DR, and it's Rachel, RACHELTOLES.com. And I want to thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and thank you for coming to Annapolis. I mean, we're going to see you on the 2nd of April.
Yeah, thank you, John, and thank you. I'm so excited. I'm very excited to be there. I think they're going to be in for, I guarantee that they will leave with a completely different mindset, at least even about one thing. It may not be completely changed, but they will walk out of there with a lot to process. Let's just leave it there. Become curious, come open, come curious. That's all I've got.
Well, I am ready for it. I am 7 rows back, dead center, pardon that pun. But again, tickets at ramsheadonstage.com and marylandhall.org. I look forward to seeing you, and I will make sure that I pull you aside and say hello and introduce myself. But
yes, please do. Please do. I look forward to meeting you, and I can't wait to see you all at the show.
This has been a bonus podcast from Eye on Annapolis. Please visit us at eyeonannapolis.net. Follow us on Facebook at All Annapolis and on Twitter at Eye on Annapolis. And if you haven't subscribed to the Daily News Brief podcast, go for it. And all of your local news will be delivered to your phone, tablet, or smart device by 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday.